Okay, welcome. So we're continuing our coverage of this new ceasefire that Donald Trump has put forward that Hamas seems to be interested in signing. Donald Trump calls this ceasefire the final ceasefire or the final deal. That sounds a lot like the final solution that Nazi came out with. Remember that, Kunle?
Yes,
final solution.
The final solution to the Jewish problem.
Nazi, like, yeah, he's using, but now it's the Palestinians. These guys, you know what I've noticed about history? These guys are coding. They're letting you know who they are. They're proud of who they are. For him to use that language is like saying that we're proud to be Nazis. And I'm not surprised, because that's what white supremacy is. Nazism started in the U.S. in the early 1900s, and white supremacy and everything. So what they're doing is that they're doubling down on their language. They say this is the final deal or something like that. But anyway, so Kunle and I were talking about this the other day, and Kunle was saying that they always make deals and Israel walks away, which is true. But the language that Hamas is using in this one sounds a little bit more defeated. Hamas looked at the first deal that Trump made and said that they're willing to sign it if a few provisions are made. And in that first provision, it says that all of Hamas people need to be, all the soldiers, anybody with weapons needs to be extinguished, killed. Hamas didn't address that concern. They addressed the concern that we need more direct language rather than vague language, which assures that Israel will stick to 60 days. Do you see what I'm saying, Kunle? They're not even addressing the other part. They said that we can address all the other ones after the 60 days. But what we want is just a promise from America that Israel won't attack us for 60 days. You see what I'm saying? They didn't address before. Hamas would have said, no way, you can't tell us that we have to disband and all of us have to get killed and everything. And then here's the one that's really chilling. Hamas said that they are open to a technocratic state. Remember the Afolabi and Kunle, there's a thing called the Abraham Accord, which says that Gaza will be turned into a technocratic state. They said they'll agree to it as long as it's Palestinians who are chosen to run it. To me, the U.S. has Palestinians that they can choose to run it. There'll be people who are wards of the state, just like the president of Palestine is. They're people who kiss America's ass. So the language that Hamas is saying now shows to me that their will is somewhat broken, because they're easing off on their demands. For them to say we can negotiate other things like our people getting killed and release of 10,000 Palestinian prisoners, they said we can debate that later. All we ask for is more strong language that says unambiguously that you want to attack us for 60 days. It's like begging for crumbs. What are your thoughts, Afolabi? Then we'll go to Kunle.
Yes, I quite agree with you. It appears that Hamas is talking from a position of weakness. Stronger guarantees that Israel will not resume hostilities after a 60-day truce, which I don't think is going to happen.
Yes.
And they also want clear timelines.
But even if it does, they're only asking for 60 days. Yeah. Yes. It's like they'll take whatever they can get. And one last thing, sorry to cut you. They also said that to have other groups other than America deliver food for their people. So it sounds like now they're worried about their people, which goes to what I was saying before, Kunle. They've been killing their women and children so badly that it's broken the will of the soldiers, because they know that these are their women and children. So now they're begging for 60 days grace guarantee and for their women and children to get food. Sorry, continue, Afolabi.
Yeah, they said the timelines for Israeli troop withdrawal is not clear, that they want clear timelines for the withdrawal of Israeli troops.
No ambiguity.
Like you said, they want a full control of humanitarian aid, distribution by UN, and Palestinian Red Crescent, which I don't think is ever going to happen. And then they want immediate rehabilitation of vital infrastructure like hospitals, roads, electricity, and water system, and reopening of the Rafah crossing for aid trade and medical evacuations. There's no how Netanyahu is going to agree to any of this. And they've said already.
Well, no, I think they'll finally agree. You know what?
Okay.
Yeah. Here's what I believe. Netanyahu said that his goal is to either kill all the Palestinians or displace them. I believe that if Hamas allows Israel to displace them, the violence will end. Because I don't think Israel is killing these people for fun. It's not just for fun. They want to displace them and create a technocratic state. Yeah. Other countries have jumped on board. Saudi, they call it the Abraham Shield. Other Arab countries, all these traitors, Saudi Arabia, all of them. The only country that hasn't jumped in is Iran and Lebanon. The rest of them have said, yes, we need to create a technocratic Israel, get rid of Hamas. And then basically their goal is to displace. And Hamas is not, they haven't spoken and said, oh, we're against the displacement. They said, we'll talk about that later. So my prediction is that all of this violence will end. The reason Israel has been walking away for deals is because they want to make sure that they have the ultimate deal, which is that basically they seize the land. And in the future, you'll see Palestinians living in Canada, living in Europe, living in Rwanda, living in Egypt. They want to clear that area of all of them. And that's why they're killing them. They're not just killing them because they hate them. Nobody goes to war for fun.
Yeah,
they're doing this to create a colony. And their plan is this: once they displace them, they will now, with the help of Lebanon, they will now encircle Iran. That's what their major goal is.
Yeah,
they're not just doing war for fun.
Yeah,
what are your thoughts, Kunle? That's what I think. What are your thoughts, Kunle?
Well, when it comes to what's going on there, the picture that I'm looking at is that we're not getting any closer to a ceasefire. If you remember during Biden's time, they kept saying we're almost at a ceasefire for about the entire time, almost a year. It was very insincere. I don't think there's any sincerity in the move.
So let me ask you a question. Then what do you think Israel's final goal is? Do you think there's only two goals they have, either to wipe the place out or displace it? What do you think their final goal is? Now, you don't think there'll be a ceasefire? I said it in my last show. If these guys surrender and say, yes, you can displace us, Israel will stop.
There's nowhere to displace them because Egypt will not take them as displacement refugees.
So then what you're saying then is there won't be a ceasefire. Then what you're saying then is that there won't be a ceasefire, there'll be a total cleansing, right? That's the only other option.
Yes, I do think that they're going to continue killing them. I don't think they're going to take a surrender. I think they're just going to continue killing them. Because you see, this doesn't even resolve what
is a Holocaust. You're predicting a Holocaust, right?
Yes, because this doesn't resolve what's going on the West Bank. There's no Hamas in the West Bank. They haven't discussed
but here's the thing. The people of Palestine are now begging Hamas to just sign it. The people in the West Bank will leave now. They're tired. Kunle, if you lived in the West Bank right now and you had 5 children and someone said leave or stay, what will you do? You'll leave because you don't want your children to die.
They've been killing them in the West Bank before, during.
But they've stepped it up to another level now. They've stepped it up to a new level where they're starving them. And when you get starved, you can't even think straight anymore. At least before they were eating. It's only been the last 2 months that they've been starving them to death. So what I'm saying is this thing has escalated to the point now that the Palestinians can't take it anymore. And my thing is that they will leave, and the U.S. and Israel will pay Egypt and these countries to take them. That's why they're coming up with this. If these documents are out there, Kunle, the Abraham Accord, the idea is to turn it into a technocratic state. And like you said, they will hire Palestinians to work as their cleaners and stuff. It'll be just like South Africa. They'll still stay, but they'll be second-class citizens. They'll hire them as cleaners. They'll hire them to rebuild the country. What do you think, Kunle? Yeah.
That's ethnic cleansing under a fancy word.
That's what it is. That's what they're doing. Yeah. But my thing is that what we call a ceasefire is just another word for you don't do. I give up. They call it a ceasefire because it's not a war. This is not a war. It's a one-sided. Hamas is not at war with Israel because this is a one-sided. This is a cleansing. They still call it the Israel-Hamas conflict. This is not a conflict. This is an ass whooping. What do you think, Kunle? I know it sounds disrespectful for me to say that, but that's what it is. This is a one-sided ass whooping.
The Arab population has become incensed at their leaders' reactions and behaviors, especially in Jordan. They're beginning to have security crises from their people's reaction. We've seen in Australia that they've now said that it's not anti-Semitic to criticize Ireland has stopped trading. These are smaller reactions to this ethnic cleansing genocide that is.
I agree with you. The only thing that can save them is when American and Europeans get so tired of it that we force everybody to stop. I agree with that. Yeah, I think that's what we can agree.
The peace the type of peace that they're going to establish by force of arms and what they're doing now will not bring peace to the Middle East. It will remain tense as long as the population of that region are hostile to what has happened. There will always be a threat. Israel will not be safe. Israel is more dangerous.
Oh yeah, but what will happen is that right now they're hungry. Yeah. See, right now they're hungry and they're starving. So for a while they'll calm down, and my prediction is that for a while they'll accept it. But then a new generation will rise because this thing actually needs a real solution, which is a world war. I promise you. Russia, China, and Korea.
The states of Israel. It's not make the state of Israel safer or better. If anything, it's going to make it worse. No matter what victory they get on the back.
Make it worse. And to be honest with you, you have the Houthis you have Pakistan, you have Iraq. At some point, these people are not going to listen to America anymore, and they're going to bomb the hell out of Israel. Iran already started it. So you're right. But my thing is that I think what the plan the Americans have, Westerners tend to create things like Frankenstein, which they think they can control, then it's going to get out of their hands. They think that they can colonize that place. But you're right. It's going to eventually lead to and that's what we need. We need a war. Same thing. In order for you to get liberty, you have to fight and die. So there needs to be a war in that area, but it needs to be up to the Arabs to be of one. All of them need to be one against Israel. Because the problem is Saudi Arabia, that's what's holding back things in the Middle East. Saudi Arabia is helping America to do this. Once Saudi Arabia takes their support out, and once, like you said, once Jordan takes their support out, and we've seen what Iran did to Israel. So my point being is that Iran is still building its army. So that's why Trump did that ceasefire with Iran. Because if Iran had continued bombing Israel, the state of Israel would no longer exist because people would leave the country. They had to close the airports because Israelis wanted to leave. And so Israel will become underpopulated. So you're right about that. But for now, at least, it seems like Hamas is reeling and they're ceding to this agreement. They're willing they're willing for a ceasefire. Israel is still bombing. I'm not even sure if Israel will stop. You're right about that. And if Israel doesn't stop, it's going to be a challenge to Trump's authority because he's told them to stop. Or the Americans are lying. But I do think that their ultimate goal is to cleanse that area either through death or through exile and own that land. They don't want there to be a perpetual war in Palestine. What they want is a war that wipes them out and then they take hold of it. What are your thoughts, Afolabi? Then we'll come back to Kunle.
Yeah, I'm just a little bit puzzled because what is the future governance structure of Hamas in Gaza? What kind of governance is going to happen?
Israel and America will agree to a technocratic state, and they'll handpick the Palestinians who run it.
And then there are over 10,000 Palestinian prisoners in Israeli custody. What's going to happen to those guys? Nobody's saying anything about them.
Yeah, and Hamas is not even bringing that up. Hamas is not bringing it up. That's why I said,
and that is why Hamas has refused. And that is why Hamas has refused to demilitarize the leadership. Hamas has stated quite clearly their willingness,
I don't know if they will at that.
Their willingness to relinquish governance in favor of a technocratic Palestinian body. But the family oppose disarmament.
They've said so. Yeah.
The family oppose disarmament. So if you look at this,
they still don't want to be disarmed.
And
but they said they can talk about that.
Yes, they said so.
Sorry, go ahead. You go on.
Netanyahu faces domestic political pressure to formally annex some part of the West Bank. So it's a very, very delicate balance, the way I see it. Regional geopolitical dynamics are influencing the negotiations, including the US-led efforts to normalize ties. I don't know how this is going to play out, but there's so many things that are unresolved. Future governance in Gaza. What role will Hamas have? The release of over 10,000 Palestinian prisoners in Israeli custody. So those are the issues. And Israel must be accountable for some of the war crimes. I'm not even talking about that.
Oh, yeah, they're killing 6,000. They're killing 150 every day. After a month, that's almost 4,500 people they're killing every month. By the end of this year, it'll be 50,000 people they've killed in 1 year. And they've already killed more than 60,000. Yeah. So I've said it before, man, this is a one-sided genocide. But Kunle, what are your last thoughts? Yeah,
I saw about 97 odd this morning. My last thoughts is, as bad as this is, if this were to end with Israel being bombed for some reason, Israel has something called the Samson Directive. If you bomb the hell out of them, they're going to launch nuclear weapons in all the four corners of the earth. I'm serious. They almost did it in 67. During the 6-day war, they almost...
See, here's what it is. The West is Samson. The West is Samson.
Sorry. With Israel, every accusation is a confession. So when they say they fear Iran is going to launch nuclear weapons, they are the ones that are really the biggest danger in terms of causing any kind of nuclear fallout on the planet. Let's hope that these negotiations yield some fruit in terms of to stop the genocide, but I'm not really hopeful. I don't think it's realistic. They couldn't even get past the stage of putting temporary housing on the ruins for them to stay, much less going as far as setting up a government. It just sounds so far-fetched that I just don't think they can't even get past giving them food, much less a new form of government. So I just think that they're just going to continue.
It can't go on for another year. If it goes on for another year, it's going to be a big crisis.